Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today is Wednesday, April 22nd. We're one day, about 24 hours before the start of the NFL draft, first round. So best of luck to all the LSU players. I want to come on here and kind of throw out my theory on Garrett Nussmeier's injury situation, what went down with all that. I'm hoping a lot more people might come across this video down the line. So I'll just say right now, 3 or 4 days ago, the medical report from some of the NFL draft people came out and said Nussmeier had a cyst on his spine, and that was the cause of his midsection injury, oblique injury, whatever you want to call it, that was hindering him obviously throughout the season. And I guess he's going to have some sort of operation soon, I'm guessing after the draft. And then apparently it's like a 3-week recovery timeline. It's all very strange, just kind of like everything from the 2025 LSU season. So I'm gonna layer this video, some videos, some tweets I've went back and found on some things. So I just want to give out my theory on what I think happened because I don't think anyone really knows. And if anyone does know, they sure as hell aren't saying what went down. And more so, one, when did the injury occur? Two, what was the thought process behind playing him for as long as they did? And three, there was some lying about it from Brian Kelly. The relationship between Nussmeier and Kelly was strange, to say the least, by the end of the season. I mean, they definitely had some blow-ups with each other towards the end of both him and Kelly's time, actively being involved on game day at LSU. So, I mean, you could chalk that up to just frustration with the season. I mean, as you can see by the clip I've rolled here, it's just a little strange. Just a little strange. They shared the same agent, Kelly and Nussmeier. It's just like a lot of weird things. It doesn't add up to me. And I think like the most popular tweet I have on my Twitter is it's like a quote tweet of Barry and Brown doing something on the Senior Bowl or some shit like that. And I just said it's going to be crazy when you look back in 5 years and be like, see all these guys from the 2025 LSU team are going to have like good NFL careers. And you'd be like, how did that team fucking suck so bad? So, right. I don't want to waste too much time, and once again, this is a theory. I don't really know anything that happened. I'm sure I titled this video, What Really Happened with Garrett Nussmeier and Brian Kelly, LSU 2025. Sorry, bro. I got 270 subscribers at the time. This is clickbait. This is just my theory. This is what I tend to believe going over everything. But I think really the most confusing part, well, just everything around Garrett Nussmeier last year was confusing, but I think it's important to go back into where we were leading into 2025, especially if you're not an LSU fan watching this video. Hopefully it reaches a broader audience. But 2025, that last season, that was like our all in. Balls to the wall, what we thought at the time we could push into the middle of the table resources. LSU for the previous few years had been behind, not well funded enough in terms of football NIL to like compete to where we want to go. And after the disappointment of 2024, just had a few inexplicable breakdowns and losses, USC and Texas A&M, namely, there was a big push like, okay, we need to fans don't give a fuck. We'll give you our money, but we got to do something here. Like we're tired of being 8-4, 7-5 type shit, not really getting that close to the playoffs. So that's what we did. Brian Kelly had the $1 million match. He put up $1 million plus. LSU raised a ton of money. He had top 3 portal class, I think probably second behind Tech going into last year. And so there was a ton of excitement going into 2025 against Clemson. There was a lot of worry just because we had lost so many of those marquee week 1 games. But I think from an overall roster point of view, at least for me personally, I think I speak for the fan base, is going into last year's roster top to bottom, as much confidence as we had in several years. Had Blake Baker coming back. So there's just a lot of excitement. I think a lot of people in the national media were picking us to win the national championship. Lee Corso, JD Pickle or whatever from On3. And those weren't the only two. A lot of people thought we were going to go far. And then if y'all remember, there was a crazy rumor that happened in the beginning of fall camp that Nussmeier tore his ACL, sent everyone to a frenzy. That ended up not being the case. But then it seemed like something weird was going on in fall camp. Brian Kelly kept talking about how they had Nussmeier on some sort of pitch count in practice, so they didn't want him doing too many throws. Just saying it was precautionary. I think now we will know it wasn't necessarily precautionary. I think they were trying to hide the fact that something had happened. And I think they didn't really have a great idea of what happened with his injury. I think maybe originally they did think that, hey, let's just keep him on a pitch count in this middle of fall camp and just see what we can do and get through fall camp and get into the season. And then kind of the thing that looking back, all the reporters that were at practice and stuff, looking back after Brian Kelly got fired, they said like they probably should have included more to this. But I think it was the last Saturday scrimmage they had of fall camp, they had Nussmeier throwing underhand and like throwing underhand with a towel. And once again, they said, oh, that's just precautionary and all that stuff. And then, okay, whatever. At the time, no one was raising any concerns. Clemson game happens. We win. This is like, besides beating Alabama in the first year with Brian Kelly, that was like his banner win at the time, was beating Clemson, finally winning game one of a season, which had been like fucking insane, like almost a decade at that point. So things were really good. So we beat Clemson, massive win. Everyone's talking about us like we're a fucking contender. I think we were ranked like as highly as 4th in the country after that. And then the next week we played La Tech. And on the very first drive of the game, Nussmeier had Varian Brown streaking for a easy, would have been like 60-yard touchdown. And he fucking underthrew the shit out of him and it got intercepted. And that really, one, showed that there was something wrong and really blew up and got everyone's attention, the LSU media and the fans, that there was some sort of issue. And I think, they played Florida the next week. He played okay, but he had some dumb fucking picks. And what brings me back to something Ian Rappaport was on with like Whitworth and Fitzpatrick the other day. He was like, Nussmeier, he didn't have a good season because of the injury and the O-line, but, he did make better decisions.
Nussmeier. So he's a weird one because if you follow LSU, and you obviously do,
yep,
you've seen him play great. And then you've seen him play not good at all because he had the injury, but his decision-making last year was better, but his arm was worse.
What? No. He did not make better decisions throwing the football last year. Give me a fucking break. But basically, how the Florida game happened, I think at that point they had admitted that there was maybe a little something, bothering him. And then the way the schedule set up was, okay, we're playing Southeastern. Because if we look back, we barely beat, we did not play good against La Tech. It's pretty fucking embarrassing how close that game was. Play Florida, you get 5 fucking picks off DJ Lagway. One of them is a pick 6 and you win by 10 at home in Tiger Stadium night game. And then obviously it's the famous. And then, we know how that goes. So after that, you had Southeastern and you had a bye and then you had Ole Miss. And you knew Ole Miss was going to be like, if you can get through Ole Miss and win that game, it's like you're set up extremely well to make the playoffs, which was really the main bare minimum goal we had going into the season. And a lot of people, me included, were saying, why don't we not start Nussmeier? If he's got this fucking oblique strain mystery injury and it's from overuse, why don't we give him the week off? We have a bye after Southeastern before Ole Miss. You can give him 2 full weeks off going the Ole Miss game. But of course, for whatever reason, they didn't do that and have the bye week. And you play Ole Miss and Nussmeier played like shit, looked like shit, made shit decisions. And then, the story goes from there. They fucking waddle through the season. He gets obliterated every game. Can't throw the ball deep. We could honestly run a little bit, but Joe Sloan didn't want to. Frank Wilson refused to play Harlem Berry. So it's just a lot of things. And then eventually get the ass kicking against A&M that gets Kelly fired. Then you go into like Bama and Frank Wilson finally pulls Nussmeier in like the second half of that game, puts in Van Buren. Defense does enough for you to win the game, but offense fucking sucks. Arkansas, Van Buren starts, he wins, but it's like they throw out every trick play in the book. So it's just a shit season. Why did they play Nussmeier? You have the Clemson game, okay, and then you have the La Tech game where it's like obvious something's wrong with him. Why didn't you make the move there and shut him down? Why continue to play him? Why did you not play him? Why did you play him against Southeastern when you could have had a double bye for him going into the bulkier schedule? Makes no fucking sense what they did. Unless you know that Michael Van Buren sucks, which I think honestly has a lot more to do with this than people are really thinking. Because let's be honest, when Van Buren came in, because everyone was clamoring for him, me included, like, fuck, he's $1 million backup. He's supposed to be our starter of the future. He just can't throw the ball very good. And I honestly think that's a lot of the reason why they refused to sit Nussmeier down, even though it's hurt. Because, yeah, I'm sure Nussmeier wanted to play because, he's been in LSU forever. That was really supposed to be like his magical senior season or super senior season, whatever. And I could see him wanting to stick it out and do whatever. But I don't know. I don't know. I'll never understand why they played him against Southeastern. That's fucking the dumbest shit I've ever heard. I don't know how we didn't find the cyst. We got last year a damn near $30 million roster, and we can't figure out the injury of our star quarterback. That I have no theory on. I don't know how Our Lady of the Lake, our athletic trainers missed that. Someone's gonna have to explain that to me. But I think a lot of it is Van Buren was just not good, and they knew that, and there were signs. I remember people from fall camp saying Van Buren and Hurley couldn't even fucking hit routes on air. Walk through offense up and down the field with no defense, and Van Buren's missing guys. And then it kind of proved out through the season. So I imagine a lot of that made it to the point where they wanted to hide the Nussmeier injury because they didn't want to show how bad Van Buren was. Kelly and staff were like, oh, if we say Nussmeier's not injured, then people won't be clued into it, which is the dumbest fucking shit I've ever heard because they did figure it out. All of a sudden, you bring safeties down. You can't run. They're blitzing because Nussmeier can't throw the ball deep. You have zero deep threat in terms of your passing game. Not because you don't have the receiving weapons. The whole offense was built around deep threats. Barian Brown, Xavier Thomas, Chris Hilton. And you couldn't utilize them at all. And so you would think, if Nussmeier can't throw the ball deep, we need to turn to the guy behind him. But the guy behind him also sucks. And I think they also knew that if you trot out Van Buren, say the second half of the Ole Miss game, a lot of people online were talking about we need to put him in. Van Buren goes out there and probably would have sucked. Let's be completely honest. Then all of a sudden the fans are going to be like, what the fuck? We're paying this dude $1 million supposed to be our QB of the future, and he fucking is terrible. No offense, Van Buren. It's just is what it is. I think that had a lot to do with it. I think they knew going into the Clemson game, there's some sort of issue here, but I think they can manage it throughout the season. They did a good job in the Clemson game. But I think 99% of their offseason plans were just solely dedicated to that one Clemson game. And then after that, some sort of setback probably happened. I mean, there's nothing that simulates taking the hits in game. That's why we're not taking hits in practice. He took hits in the Clemson game. He's taking hits in the Tech game. All of a sudden, drive one, there's an issue. So they're thinking, fuck, well, what do? We don't want to show that Nussmeier's hurt because then people might key into them, but fuck, probably should put Van Buren, but fuck, Van Buren's not good. And people are going to be pissed that we're paying him all this money and he's supposed to be our quarterback of the future, and he's obviously not. So we'll just keep faking it and faking it and faking it. And I think that's what happened. And I don't know. The cyst thing is interesting. I don't know how complicated of an injury that is. I'm not sure how he missed that, especially when I'm hearing it's a 2 to 3 week recovery. So I don't know. Best of luck to Nussmeier. I think he'll be a 3rd-round pick and, hopefully like the Rams or somebody like that. I still think he can be solid in the NFL. I don't think he's going to be a superstar or anything, but he can be good. So I don't know. They had the same agent. Where does that fall into everything? Maybe that really didn't have anything to do with it, but it's a weird situation, man. So, I mean, that's kind of my convoluted throw out theory. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think I'm off base here? Am I being too hard on Van Buren? Am I being too hard on Kelly? I doubt any of you are going to say that. Yeah, I don't know. It's still fucking confusing as ever here on April 26th. But maybe in 10 years, we'll get a good little synopsis after everyone's playing careers and coaching careers are over, what actually happened with that. So until then, this is probably the best you're going to be able to do. Sorry.